Every Assassin's Creed game has that one mission, the one that defines the entire experience, the one people still argue about years later. So today I'm breaking down the single best mission from every game in the franchise and explaining exactly what makes each one legendary, starting with the mission that threw out the rulebook entirely. Assassin's Creed Arsuf. The original Assassin's Creed spent its entire runtime teaching you to be a ghost, stay hidden, blend with scholars, pick your moment, strike, disappear. Then the final mission looks at all of that and says, yeah, forget everything you learned. The Battle of Arsuf drops Altair into a real historical nightmare. September 7th, 1191, the Third Crusade. King Richard's army clashing head-on with Saladin's force of roughly 25,000 cavalry. And instead of skulking through alleyways, you're standing in a corpse-strewn battlefield, fighting wave after wave of enemies who absolutely do not care about your stealth training. Here's the thing. This mission is essentially a combat gauntlet. The game expects you to use every counterattack and guard management trick you've picked up across the entire campaign. No rooftop escapes, no convenient hay bales. Just you, your blade, and an army that wants you dead. But the real genius is what happens at the end. You don't just fight nameless soldiers. You confront King Richard himself, then go blade to blade with Templar Grandmaster Robert Disable. And the game makes something very clear. Neither side is the hero. The developers deliberately chose the Third Crusade to position the assassins as a secret force suppressing both Crusaders and Saracens. Neither faction is good, neither is evil. For 2007, that kind of moral complexity in a mainstream action game was genuinely revolutionary. Most games handed you a clear villain and said, go get him. Assassin's Creed handed you two armies and said they're both wrong. It's a brutal, brilliant way to end the game that started it all. But if you thought the franchise peaked with swordplay, wait until the sequel strapped Leonardo da Vinci's most insane invention to Ezio's back and told him to jump off a building. Assassin's Creed 2, The Flying Machine. So we just talked about a mission where you're hacking through soldiers on a blood-soaked battlefield. Now you're literally flying over Venice in a wooden glider built by Leonardo da Vinci, which is, a bit of a tonal shift. The Flying Machine mission takes place in 1485, and it completely throws out everything you've learned about how Assassin's Creed works. There's no sneaking, no climbing, no stabbing. You're just soaring above one of the most beautiful cities ever rendered in a video game, trying not to fall into a canal and die. For 2009, this was genuinely jaw-dropping. Nobody had seen anything like it. Here's how it works. Leonardo's glider can't sustain flight on its own because, well, it's made of wood and cloth, so you need thermal updrafts to keep yourself airborne. That means your allies have to light fires across Venice's rooftops, and you have to navigate from bonfire to bonfire, like the world's most stressful connect-the-dots puzzle. Miss one, and you're taking a swim. But here's the kicker. You have zero control over your altitude beyond chasing those fires. There's no throttle, no boost, no weapons, just a Renaissance genius's wooden contraption, gravity, and your ability to not mess up the flight path. You're completely at the mercy of whoever remembered to light the next bonfire. One lazy ally, and Ezio is canal food. Now historically, zero of Leonardo's Flying Machine designs ever actually achieved flight, not one. The real sketches that inspired this mission were brilliant on paper, but completely impractical in execution. The game knew this and simply did not care, because watching Ezio glide over moonlit Venice while guards stare up helplessly is more fun than historical accuracy. And honestly, fair enough. Nearly 2 decades later, this is still one of the first missions anyone mentions when you bring up Assassin's Creed 2. It broke the formula in the best possible way. But if you think flying over Venice is a dramatic finale, wait until you see how Brotherhood chose to end things. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, Pax Romana. Here's the thing about Cesare Borgia's death. In real life, it was pathetic. The man who terrorized Italy, who commanded armies and bent the papacy to his will, died during a minor skirmish at the Siege of Vienna on March 12, 1507. The soldiers who killed him didn't even know who he was. They stripped his body, left him in a ditch, and moved on with their day, which is, not ideal for one of history's most feared military commanders. But Ubisoft looked at that footnote and said, no, we're making this the most epic final boss confrontation in the entire franchise. And honestly, they pulled it off. Pax Romana is the final mission of Brotherhood, and it tasks Ezio with chasing Cesare across a full-blown Navarrese battlefield after 4 years of pursuit following the liberation of Rome. 4 years. That's not a vendetta, that's a lifestyle. Ezio tracked this man across countries through political upheaval and military chaos, just to personally end him. And the game makes you feel every second of that obsession. The full synchronization requirements are what elevate this from a great mission to a perfect one. You need to maintain at least 5 health squares throughout the encounter, limit your kills on regular soldiers, and execute a critical air assassination on Cesare without being detected. No brute forcing your way through an army, no mindless slashing. The game demands you play like an actual assassin, precise, patient, surgical. After an entire game of building Ezio into a Brotherhood leader with an army at his disposal, the finale strips all of that away and says, it's just you and him. Make it count, and that air assassination, landing on Cesare from above after everything he's done, after every betrayal and every life he destroyed, it's one of the most satisfying kills in the entire series. The game transforms a death so obscure that the real killers didn't even recognize their victim into a deeply personal cinematic revenge climax that still gives people chills over a decade later. The real Cesare died forgotten. The game made sure nobody would ever forget, but if Brotherhood gave Ezio the perfect ending to his war, Revelations had to give him the perfect ending to his life. Assassin's Creed Revelations, Desmond's Journey. Here's the thing about Revelations. After 3 games of climbing towers, stabbing Templars, and slowly piecing together Desmond's modern-day storyline, the finale doesn't give you a final assassination. It gives you a puzzle game. Desmond's journey sequences are unlike anything else in the Ezio trilogy. Instead of stalking targets through Renaissance cities, you're navigating fragmented memories through abstract environments, platforming, puzzle solving, environmental traversal challenges that feel closer to Portal than Assassin's Creed. There's zero combat, zero stealth, zero hidden blades. You're literally just a guy walking through his own broken mind, trying to remember who he is. And honestly, it works better than it has any right to. The shift in gameplay mirrors exactly what's happening in the narrative. Ezio's story was always personal. Revenge, legacy, Brotherhood. But by Revelations, the franchise has quietly evolved into something cosmic. The first civilization isn't just background lore anymore. It's the entire point. So when Jupiter shows up at the end and essentially tells Desmond that the world cannot be saved through conventional means, that everything he's been fighting for across 3 games might not matter, the abstract puzzle gameplay suddenly makes sense. You were never going to stab your way out of this one. But that ending, a cryptic warning, a cliffhanger about Desmond's fate, and then credits. No resolution, no catharsis, just a first civilization member basically saying good luck with that and walking away. The community is still divided on this years later. The Hidden Blade was becoming a footnote, but if Revelations went abstract, the next entry went in the complete opposite direction. Muskets, cannons, and one of the most chaotic battlefields in American history. Assassin's Creed 3, the Battle of Bunker Hill. Here's something that shouldn't work on paper. You're dropped into the middle of one of the bloodiest battles in American history, cannonballs tearing through the air, musket fire ripping across the field, hundreds of soldiers dying around you, and the game tells you to kill a maximum of 4 people. That's the Battle of Bunker Hill. On June 17th, 1775, American forces under General Israel Putnam clashed with Major John Pitcairn's British reserves on Breed's Hill overlooking Boston Harbor. The real engagement inflicted over 1,000 British casualties, nearly half of all the forces they sent in. Proportionally, it was one of the costliest battles of the entire Revolutionary War. Men were dropping faster than they could be replaced. It was absolute carnage, and Connor has to walk through it like he's picking his way through a particularly aggressive farmer's market. Here's the thing, full synchronization requires you to cross the entire battlefield without taking a single point of damage, which sounds impossible until you realize the mission is actually a stealth puzzle disguised as a war sequence. The British firing line operates on a rhythm. They fire, they reload, they fire again. Your job is to time your sprints between volleys, ducking behind cover while hundreds of musket balls shred the air where your head was half a second ago. It's like Frogger, except Frogger didn't have period-accurate artillery. On top of that, you're limited to killing a maximum of 4 soldiers across the entire mission, and you need to execute an air assassination on Major Pitcairn completely undetected. 4 kills. In a battle that historically produced over 1,000 corpses, Connor is essentially threading a needle through a hurricane, and that tension is exactly what makes this mission sing. Every other game would have you mowing down redcoats by the dozen. Assassin's Creed 3 asks you to be surgical, precise. The chaos of war is happening all around you, but you're not a soldier. You're an assassin. You have one target and everything else is just noise. It's the franchise's assassination philosophy distilled into a single brilliant contradiction. The biggest battle in the game demands the smallest body count, but if you think navigating a war zone with a 4-kill limit is intense, wait until you're chasing down a Spanish treasure fleet in the middle of the Caribbean. mission: Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag: The Treasure Fleet. Every other Assassin's Creed game at least pretends it wants you to be stealthy. Black Flag looked at that entire philosophy, threw it overboard, and said, nah, you're a pirate now, act like it. The Treasure Fleet mission opens with Edward Kenway in leg irons aboard a Spanish treasure vessel, captured by Caribbean Templars alongside his partner Adewale, which is, not ideal. But what follows is one of the most mechanically chaotic missions in the entire franchise, and it's exactly the kind of insanity Black Flag was built for. The full synchronization conditions alone tell you everything you need to know about what you're walking into. You need to free all 23 captive pirates spread across the vessels. You need to kill 3 specific guards from behind corner cover positions, and you need to do all of this while the ocean itself is actively trying to murder you. Here's where it gets complicated. The brutes on these ships are not your standard Assassin's Creed enemies. These guys are carrying axes and grenades, they're armored to the teeth, and they will shrug off your counterattacks like you just sneezed on them. Conventional combat literally does not work. You have to use jump attacks targeting their exposed backs, which sounds simple until you're doing it on a rocking ship deck while 3 other enemies are swinging at your face. And then there's the environment. Incoming mortars are identified through water ripples and color-coded warnings, so you're reading the surface of the ocean mid-combat like some kind of nautical fortune teller. High waves require specific ship positioning to survive. Waterspouts show up on the minimap, and if you don't navigate around them, that's your whole ship gone, just like that. But the real genius of this mission is the 23 pirates. On paper, freeing them is just a sync requirement. In practice, it's Edward Kenway proving he's more than a selfish treasure hunter. Every chain you break is a crew member earned. Every pirate you liberate is character development happening through gameplay instead of a cutscene. Edward doesn't give a speech about leadership. He just does it, one set of shackles at a time. But if you think a prison break on the open sea is chaotic, wait until Rogue flips the entire franchise on its head. Assassin's Creed Rogue, by invitation only. Rogue is the most underrated game in the entire franchise, and this mission is a big reason why. By invitation only puts you in the boots of Shay Cormac, a former assassin who's defected from the Brotherhood and is now running operations for the other side, and the game has the audacity to make it feel completely justified. Here's the setup. Shay and his ally Liam O'Brien are pursuing a high-ranking Templar named Lawrence Washington. The objective is to recover a stolen precursor box and manuscript, 2 artifacts that the Assassin Brotherhood has been recklessly chasing without any regard for the catastrophic consequences. You take the helm of the Morrigan, Shay's personal vessel, and pursue Washington's ship through icy colonial waters before intercepting his docked vessel and capturing the man himself. But here's the thing, this mission doesn't hit because of the naval combat. Although the Morrigan handles like a dream, it hits because of where Shay is mentally. He's no longer an assassin, he's not fully a Templar yet either. He's stuck in this uncomfortable moral no man's land, where every action feels loaded with doubt. You're doing Templar work, using Templar resources, hunting Templar targets, and the whole time your brain is screaming, wait, aren't these supposed to be the bad guys? Turns out no, not necessarily. That's Rogue's entire thesis. The Assassin Brotherhood, the organization you've been fighting for across 6 previous games, is presented as genuinely reckless. Their obsession with precursor technology nearly destroyed entire cities. Shay saw it firsthand, tried to warn them, and got thrown off a cliff for his trouble, which is, not ideal. By invitation, only catches all of that tension in a single mission. You're not a hero, you're not a villain, you're a guy on a boat trying to stop the people he used to trust from accidentally ending the world. The maritime gameplay grounds the philosophical conflict in something tangible. Cannons firing, waves crashing, a target to capture. It keeps you busy enough that the existential crisis sneaks up on you between broadsides. And that's what makes Rogue special. It doesn't ask you to root for the Templars. It just asks you to consider that maybe the assassins aren't always right. 6 games of certainty, undone by one mission on a frozen river. But if Rogue quietly challenges everything you thought you knew about the Brotherhood, Unity's next entry does something even bolder. It drops you inside Notre Dame with a target and 0 instructions. Assassin's Creed Unity, The Confession. Unity gets a lot of flack. Some of it deserved, some of it not. But buried underneath the launch bugs and the frame rate nightmares is one of the best assassination missions the franchise has ever produced, and it's not even close. The Confession tasks Arno Dorian with killing Charles Gabriel Sivert, one of the men directly responsible for murdering Arno's adoptive father. The target is meeting a contact inside Notre Dame Cathedral. Your job is to make sure he never leaves. Simple enough on paper, except the game does something that Assassin's Creed almost never does. It tells you to figure it out yourself. Mentor Pierre Balek meets Arno on a rooftop overlooking Notre Dame and basically says, study your surroundings. Devise your own plan. I'm not helping you. That's it. No waypoints lighting up the screen. No minimap breadcrumb trail leading you by the hand to the one correct answer. Bellic is essentially telling telling Arno, and by extension, the player, that you're a real assassin now. Act like one. And the mission delivers on that promise completely. You activate Eagle Vision, scout the cathedral interior, identify guard rotations, map out patrol routes, locate potential entry points. There are multiple approaches available. You can blend with monks, you can find elevated positions, you can create diversions. The game trusts you to read the environment and make a decision, which sounds basic but was genuinely revolutionary for the series at that point. Then there's the actual kill location. Arno assassinates Sivert inside a confessional booth, during the French Revolution, inside Notre Dame, a place of religious sanctuary turned into a site of targeted violence, right in the middle of an era defined by the Enlightenment's challenge to religious authority. That's not accidental. That's dripping with thematic irony, and it elevates what could have been a standard stealth kill into something genuinely memorable. The confession represents what Assassin's Creed assassination design should always be: player agency, environmental storytelling, multiple approaches, and a target location that actually means something beyond go here, kill guy. Unity's reputation may never fully recover from its launch, but this mission, flawless. But if you think infiltrating a cathedral requires nerve, wait until Jacob Frye tries to rob the Bank of England. Assassin's Creed Syndicate, a bad penny. Jacob Frye breaks into the Bank of England. That's it. That's the pitch. You don't need anything else to know this mission is going to be a good time. A bad penny tasks Jacob with infiltrating one of the most iconic financial institutions on the planet to take out a criminal mastermind named Twopenny before he can rob the place blind. And look, the name Twopenny should tell you everything you need to know about the level of subtlety Syndicate is working with here, but the mission itself is genuinely excellent, because the setting does about 90% of the heavy lifting. The Bank of England's interior is modeled after the real Victorian-era architecture, and it shows. Massive vaulted ceilings, ornate corridors, restricted areas stacked on top of each other like a vertical puzzle box. It feels less like a standard assassination mission and more like a heist film where you're both the thief and the hitman, which is, not ideal for the bank's security team. But here's what elevates this beyond a standard go here, kill this guy objective. Twopenny isn't just some random Templar lieutenant. He's the financial linchpin holding together the Templars' economic stranglehold on all of London. Killing him doesn't just remove one bad actor, it collapses an entire pillar of Templar control over the British Empire's money supply. Jacob isn't picking off a soldier, he's performing economic surgery with a hidden blade. The full synchronization requirement adds another layer entirely. You have to locate a secret passage hidden within the bank, which means you can't just beeline for the target. You actually have to explore the building, poke around corners, test walls, and engage with the environment like a proper assassin casing a job. It rewards curiosity in a way that most Syndicate missions frankly don't bother with. The whole thing just works. Victorian London, a heist inside one of the most secure buildings in the Empire, a target whose death has systemic consequences, and a secret passage that makes you feel like you earned something beyond the kill. It's Syndicate at its most stylish, and proof that sometimes you just need a really cool building and a really good reason to be inside it. But if Syndicate gave us style, Origins gave us something far more personal and far more brutal. Assassin's Creed Origins, the Hyena. Origins rebooted the entire franchise, and the Hyena is the mission where you actually feel it. Bayek travels to Giza to meet an informant named Marid, and the goal is simple on paper. Gather intelligence on a masked operative known only as the Hyena, a figure who controls the markets of Giza and operates behind layers of secrecy that would make most modern intelligence agencies jealous. But the way the mission asks you to get there is what matters. You don't just get a waypoint and a name. You investigate, you talk to people, you piece together who this person is, what they want, why they do what they do, and then only after you actually understand the target, you kill them. That loop is everything. For years, Assassin's Creed had been drifting further and further from its assassination roots. The games got bigger, the maps got wider, and somewhere along the way, the actual act of hunting a specific human being got buried under naval combat and tower defense minigames. The Hyena strips all of that back. It's the franchise remembering what made it special in the first place. You're not a soldier. You're not a pirate. You're an assassin, and assassins do homework before they do murder. Here's where it gets heavier, though. The Hyena isn't just some random criminal running a protection racket. They're a member of the Order of the Ancients, an organization founded by Pharaoh Smenkhkare that stretches back millennia, not centuries, millennia. Every masked operative Bayek hunts is a participant in something so old that no single human lifespan could even comprehend its full scope. That context turns what could be a routine target elimination into something that genuinely weighs on you. You're pulling one thread from a tapestry that's been weaving itself since before recorded history decided to start keeping notes. Completing the mission rewards you with 2,500 experience points and an achievement literally titled the Hyena, which is a nice nice little trophy marking your progress through Bayek's vendetta against specific order members, but the real reward is the feeling. That slow build from investigation to understanding to execution is the core identity of what Assassin's Creed was always supposed to be. Origins didn't just reboot the gameplay systems, it rebooted the philosophy. But if you think Origins went big with its historical ambitions, wait until Odyssey literally opens with one of the most famous battles in human history, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. This is Sparta. Opening your game with the Battle of Thermopylae is one of the most absurdly confident moves in franchise history. Most games ease you in. A quiet village, a training yard, maybe a conversation with a mentor. Odyssey throws you off a cliff into 480 BCE and says, here, you're King Leonidas now, figure it out. And that's exactly what makes this work. The mission begins with Leonidas standing at the edge of a cliff, looking out over the incoming Persian fleet, thousands of ships, an army so large it supposedly drank rivers dry, and your job is to hold the line at the narrow coastal pass of Thermopylae with roughly 300 Spartans against the full might of Xerxes I's Achaemenid Empire, which is, not ideal. Here's the thing most people get wrong about Thermopylae. It wasn't just 300 guys. Modern scholarly estimates place the total Greek defensive force at around 7,000 soldiers. Herodotus and Pausanias gave numbers ranging from 5,000 to 11,000 depending on the source. The 300 narrative is specifically the Spartan contingent, the elite corps that stayed for the final stand. But the game leans into the myth, because myths are more fun to play than footnotes. The actual gameplay functions as a tutorial, disguised as one of the most cinematic sequences in the entire franchise. You learn combat mechanics by fighting waves of Persian soldiers on a blood-soaked battlefield, and then the game throws a full boss fight at you against a Persian warrior named Kurush. You're learning dodge timing, ability usage, and heavy attack windows while simultaneously reenacting one of the most famous last stands in human history. Most tutorials teach you how to open a door. This one teaches you how to die gloriously, and that's the real genius of this mission. You know how it ends. Everyone knows how it ends. Leonidas and his men held the pass for 3 brutal days before total elimination. The game opens with a defeat. Not a victory, not a heroic rescue, not a last-second escape. A loss. Every single defender dies. The game is telling you from the very first minute that individual skill and courage operate within forces far bigger than any one person can control. That's the entire thematic backbone of Odyssey, delivered before you even pick your actual protagonist. It's a tutorial that doesn't feel like a tutorial, a history lesson that doesn't feel like a lecture, and a boss fight that feels like myth becoming interactive. Pretty solid first impression. But if you think starting a game with a legendary last stand is bold, wait until Valhalla asks you to personally murder a king. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, King Killer. King Killer is one of the best bait and switches in the entire franchise, and it works because you don't see it coming until it's already too late. The setup is simple. Eivor teams up with Ivar the Boneless to assault Kausto Castle and kill King Rodri the Great. Standard Viking power play. You're establishing dominance, securing territory, and removing a political obstacle with extreme prejudice. The fortress itself gives you multiple entry points and approach options, letting you blend large-scale siege warfare with stealth infiltration and targeted assassination. You can storm the gates with your raiding party or slip through quieter paths and pick off defenders before the main force even breaches the walls. Mechanically, it's one of Valhalla's most satisfying missions. You feel like a Viking warlord with an actual battle plan, and the siege works. You take the castle, Rodri gets captured, and Ivar does what Ivar does best, which is torture and execute the man with the kind of enthusiasm that should probably concern everyone in the room. Victory. Mission accomplished. Time to celebrate. But here's where it gets devastating. After the dust settles, you discover that Ivar murdered Ceolbert, not some random soldier. Ceolbert, one of Eivor's trusted companions, a young man caught between two worlds who never deserved what happened to him. Ivar killed him to provoke the conflict that led to the siege in the first place. The entire assault on Kausto Castle, every tactical decision you made, every guard you killed, all of it was built on a lie. Ivar manufactured the war so he could have his fun, which means the triumph you just experienced. Poisoned. Retroactively, completely poisoned. Eivor executes Ivar for what he did, not in some grand cinematic battle, but as a consequence. A friend betrayed, a companion murdered, and the only appropriate response is to put the man responsible in the ground. What started as a military victory ends as personal tragedy. You went into this mission thinking you were winning a war and walked out having lost someone who mattered. That's what makes King Killer special. The multiple approaches and siege mechanics give you agency over how the battle plays out, but zero agency over what comes after. The betrayal hits harder because you were having a good time, you were enjoying the victory, and the game lets you enjoy it just long enough before pulling the rug out and showing you what it actually cost. But if Valhalla's best mission is a victory that turns to ash, Mirage's best mission is a return to what Assassin's Creed does at its absolute purest. Assassin's Creed Mirage, the head of the snake. Mirage had one job. After years of RPG skill trees, dialogue wheels, and 200-hour open worlds, it needed to prove that Assassin's Creed still worked as a pure assassination game, and the head of the snake is the mission where it proves exactly that. Basim ibn Ishaq has spent the entire game climbing from street thief to hidden one's operative, systematically dismantling the Order of the Ancients one target at a time. After his fourth assassination, players return to the Anbar hideout before being directed to report to Roshan at the Harbiya Bureau. What follows is a finale built entirely on the fundamentals: reconnaissance, planning, a single precise kill, no massive army battles, no mythological boss fights with health bars the size of a football field, just an assassin doing assassin things. And honestly, it's refreshing. The mission plays like a love letter to the original games. You study your target, you identify your approach, you execute. The entire design philosophy of Mirage is distilled into this one sequence, and it works because the franchise spent a decade wandering away from this formula before realizing, oh right, people actually liked the part where you assassinate people. But here's where it gets complicated, because underneath this perfectly crafted assassination finale, Mirage detonates a narrative bomb that recontextualizes everything you just played. Basim ibn Ishaq is not simply a human being, he's an incarnate Isu, specifically Loki, whose consciousness has been inhabiting him throughout the entire game. Those persistent nightmares, the strange visions, the feeling that something was guiding Basim toward his destiny, that wasn't character development. That was an ancient god wearing a human suit and slowly waking up. Every decision Basim made, every target he eliminated, every step from street thief to master assassin was unknowingly shaped by a being older than human civilization. His entire journey wasn't really his, which is, not ideal for someone who thought he was making his own choices. The twist works because the mission earns it. On the surface, the head of the snake is a satisfying conclusion to a traditional assassination campaign. Basim completes his mission, the order falls, the hidden ones prevail. But the Loki revelation turns that satisfaction inside out. You didn't just watch a man become an assassin, you watched a god remember who he was, and if you played Valhalla, you already know where Basim ends up, which makes the whole thing hit even harder on a second playthrough. What makes this the perfect ending for this video is that it mirrors the franchise itself. Assassin's Creed keeps returning to its roots, stripping back the excess, recommitting to the blade and the hood, but there's always something bigger hiding beneath the surface, a conspiracy within the conspiracy, a story underneath the story. Mirage understood that. The head of the snake gives you the assassination game you've been asking for, then quietly reminds you that nothing in this franchise is ever just what it appears to be. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.